Good evening and welcome all of you. So here I am again with a new lecture on a current affairs topic. So for today we will be discussing the Financial Action Task Force. So whenever anyone hears about this organization, one thing that comes to everybody's mind is the name of Pakistan. So we will also be considering the case of Pakistan. Also, as the plenary meeting of the FATF is scheduled for October 21st to 23rd, where it will be decided whether Pakistan will be continued in the grey list or it will be blacklisted. But before going on to that, let's understand the history of this organization. What are the functions, how it works, and what are the different kinds of the list, what it is likely to be grey listed or blacklisted, which countries are in the blacklist, whether Pakistan is likely to be blacklisted or not. So in today's video, I will be answering all these questions to you. So beginning with the history. So Financial Action Task Force is an intergovernmental organization or intergovernmental body, and this body was established in 1989. In 1989, during the G7 summit, the G7 countries and the European Commission, they decided to constitute the Financial Action Task Force. And this organization today has 39 members overall. India was an observer nation till 2006 in this organization and became a full member in 2010. So India became a full member of FATF in 2010. Where are the headquarters of this organization? So this FATF, it is headquartered in the headquarters of OECD. So for headquarters of the OECD, that is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is also based in Paris. They serve as the headquarters of FATF also. So that was the introduction part. So also I would like to state that this organization is not related to the UN, or is not part of the United Nations, not part of UN. Now coming on to the functions of this organization. Why this organization was created and what functions it performs today. So this organization is primarily, it is responsible for developing the standards and procedures to combat or to control money laundering, terrorist financing, and the proliferation financing for weapons of mass destruction. So in the beginning, when in 1989, when this organization originated, it was responsible, or its charter included only combating the money laundering. But with the World Trade Center attack on US in 2001, terrorist financing was also included in its functions. And over the years, the proliferation financing for weapons of mass destruction has also become its function in order to control financing for these kinds of things. Money laundering, so it develops standards to combat money laundering, terrorist financing, and proliferation financing for weapons of mass destruction. So money laundering is a process where you turn black money into white money through various procedures. So these are illegal procedures. So it is a kind of a money. So black money is a kind of money on which no tax has been paid. So it is a procedure of converting black money into white money. Okay. Now, what is the second function? Second function of this organization is to ensure or to protect the integrity of the international financial system, so that the international financial system does not collapse or it does not become susceptible to these kind of activities like money laundering, terrorist financing, etc. Third thing is that it will develop the will among its members, these 39 members, that they will bring respective legislation in their countries to combat money laundering and terrorist financing activities. So these are the functions of this organization. So what is the function? Developing the standards to combat money laundering, terrorist financing, and the proliferation financing for weapons of mass destruction. Second function is to protect the integrity of the international financial system, so that the international economic system, it continues to go on without any interruption or does not face any serious kind of disruption due to such activities. Third thing is to develop the will among its member countries to bring required laws to combat such illegal activities like money laundering and the terrorist financing. So these were the functions. Now this organization, it remains in news because although it is not a very high profile organization, but the function it performs are very important. And what are the functions that we just read, but how this organization works? So that is more important. So every year it meets, this organization, it meets through its plenary meetings, and in plenary meetings all the member states, they participate, and in these plenary meetings the decisions are taken whether or reviewed whether a member country is following the recommendations of this organization or not. So it reviews the performance of the member countries, whether they are complying with the requirements of combating money laundering and the terrorist financing. Also, the working of this organization is consensus based. So there is unanimity. Any decision has to be consensus based. Has to be. So that means whenever you want to place any country in the grey list or the black list, it has to be a decision which is based on the consensus of all member countries. So it is not a divided organization or paralyzed organization. Like I explained you in the United Nations video about the working of the United Nations Security Council, where I explained that how UNSC was paralyzed due to its division into 3+2, that is US, UK, France on one side and China plus Russia on the other side. So it is a paralyzed body. Every action brought by either of the opposing parties is vetoed by the second side. So this is not the case, but in this organization there is also a veto system. So how that work? A veto system, any resolution can be vetoed by a group of 3 countries. So that means if you are likely to place Pakistan into the blacklist, then it is likely to be vetoed by China, its all-weather friend, or Malaysia, or any other country which they continue to be in close cooperation with Pakistan. So it is very unlikely that it would be placed in the blacklist. Third thing is, what is this mutual evaluation? So there are 2 stages in the mutual evaluation. First is every country submits, so every member country submits its mutual evaluation report. This is mutual evaluation report. So every country, it needs to submit a mutual evaluation report where it will analyze what steps it has taken to combat the menace of money laundering and the terrorist financing. So India also submits its mutual evaluation reports, and it has passed through 3 mutual evaluations, and 4th is now going to happen in recent future. So when a country submits this mutual evaluation report, it is then considered by a peer. So it is reviewed by a group, and one of such group is the Asia Pacific group. Asia Pacific group on money laundering. So it is also an intergovernmental organization which is responsible for combating that all the member countries of this Asia Pacific group, they are abiding by the global standards on money laundering and terrorist financing. So it has 41 members, ensuring compliance with the rules and regulations of the money laundering and terrorist financing. So recently this Asia Pacific group, it has submitted a report on the review or the performance of Pakistan on the action plan which were given to it in 2019. So I will be explaining this Asia Pacific group report on Pakistan in the next section. So moving further, this is peer reviewed, and after peer review, the sanctions or the recommendations are brought into force, whether this country has to be put into the grey list or the blacklist. If it is a non-cooperative country, that means it will be pushed into the blacklist. For example, North Korea or Iran in the blacklist. If it is a country which is considered to be safe haven, then it is likely to be put in the grey list. Safe haven for what? For money laundering and terrorism funding. So I explained it to you earlier that FATF, it meets through its plenary meetings, and there are 3 plenary meetings in a year. So 3 plenary meetings in a year. Here in these plenary meetings, decisions are taken whether a country is performing according to the established standards or not. What happens if a country is not following the standards? So ostracization is one of the practices with the or boycott, economic boycott of that country. So for example, Pakistan is at present facing economic boycott not only by the international community but also from the international financial institutions like IMF, World Bank, European institutions, Asian Development Bank, etc. So it not be able to obtain financial grant or aid from these institutions as a result of non-cooperation. So now coming on to the case of Pakistan. So this is not the first time in June 2018 that it was grey listed. So Pakistan was also grey listed earlier when from 2012 to 2015 it was in grey list. So this is not the first time it is happening. So it has a very bad history. Bad history because it allows a number of the terrorist group to operate from its territory which are engaged in cross-border terrorism with India. Okay. So and despite international pressure or Indian pressure, it has not been taking a stronger action toward this terrorist group. So that is why it was placed in this grey list from 2012 to 2015. Basically, India built a lot of pressure after the 2008 Mumbai terrorist attacks, and this was a reason of that only. Second time when Pakistan was put into grey list was in June 2018, and till today it continues to be in that grey list. So this grey list period was till end of 2019. But in 2019, and this grace period was increased in February 2020, the FATF met and it decided that a grace period of 4 months is to be given to Pakistan to meet its 27-point action plan. So again in June 2020, FATF met and it reviewed the performance of Pakistan. So it said that Pakistan is not entitled to an upgrade, so it will continue to be in the grey list. So what happened that in August, Pakistan, it took sanction, it put sanctions or took actions against 88 terror groups. So it placed economic sanctions on certain terror groups. Major among them were Jamaat-ud-Dawa and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, which are engaged in the cross-border terrorist attack in India. So also it placed certain high-profile terrorists under prison. And again in September, what it did in order to come out of this grey list and to show that it is very serious on this issue of combating terrorist funding is that it held a special session of parliament. So there was a special session of parliament, and in this special session it passed a number of laws. Session of parliament. Passing the anti-terrorism bill or amending it. Second is the anti-money laundering amendment bill. So these are the most important legislation which were brought in the special session of the parliament, which was held in September 2020, because Pakistan knew that its status is likely to be reviewed in October on these action points. So it wants to come out of this grey list. I will explain to you why it is so imperative for Pakistan at present to come out of this grey list. And third is the Islamabad Capital Territory Waqf Properties Bill. So it brought 3 major acts or 3 major bills and amendments to them. That is the anti-terrorism bill, anti-money laundering bill, and the Islamabad Capital Territory Waqf Properties Bill in order to control terrorist funding to these terror organizations. And in August, it put sanctions on a number of the terrorist group, including the Jamaat-ud-Dawa and the Jaish-e-Mohammed. So, okay. So now coming on to the plenary meeting, which is scheduled to be held on 21st to 23rd October. So, plenary meeting in October. So, what are the chances of Pakistan remaining in the grey list or being blacklisted? So, likely, for example, the grey list. So, recently the Asia Pacific Group has submitted its report on the mutual evaluation, and it has recommended that Pakistan's performance is not up to mark and it is not eligible for a re-rating or upgrading of its rating. So it should be continued in the grey list. But this APJ report is for year 2019. And for coming out of the grey list, Pakistan has to fulfill these 13 points which were given to it, which remain unfulfilled, till June 2020. So recently in September, Pakistan submitted a proposal that it would be able to meet 11 points out of these 13 points in order to combat the terrorist funding. So this 27-point action plan is to control or combat the terrorism funding in the Pakistan. Okay, so it has to meet all these points in order to come out of the grey list. So there are very less chances that it would be able to come out of this grey list, but most likely it would continue in this list. But what are the chances of Pakistan being put into the blacklist? So as I told you, the decision of FATF is based on consensus. So in order to put Pakistan into a blacklist, you need to achieve a consensus. And whether this consensus is possible, I also told you that 3 members of FATF can veto a resolution. So China, along with Malaysia and other countries with which Pakistan is lobbying very hard to boycott any such kind or to veto any such kind of resolution. So it is very unlikely that it will be blacklisted. So what are the countries that continue to be on the blacklist? They are the North Korea and Iran, the arch enemies of USA. It is on the initiative of the USA that both these countries, they were put on the blacklist. So what happens when a country is put into the blacklist? Or what actions or what kinds of problem a country faces when it is put on the grey list? So first of all, blacklist. Economic boycott, total economic boycott of country. For example, the Iran and North Korea, they are fixing a total economic boycott by international financial institution. They are not allowed to engage in international trade. No country engages in international trade. Okay, so they don't have access to any grants or aid. Okay, so any country which remains uncooperative, so such a country is put into the blacklist. And any country which is a safe haven for what? For money laundering and terrorist financing, it is put into the grey list. So Pakistan continues to be a safe haven for the money laundering and terrorist financing. So that is why it is important to keep it in grey list. Second thing, that once a country is put into the grey list, it faces economic sanctions. Economic sanctions from other countries. your international trade will reduce. International trade reduces or declines. Investment declines. So that is the reason why in August 2020, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he said that Pakistan would be economically destroyed if it is put into the blacklist, because Pakistan at present is in a very precarious economic situation. It has mounting debts and it is not eligible for obtaining international financing from any international financing institution like IMF, World Bank, ADB, European institution, or from any other country. Also, it has reduced trade. There is no foreign investment, no foreign exchange reserves for that part. So that is why they are requesting that they should be brought out from the grey list and they should not be put into the blacklist, because that will completely destroy its economy because of the rising inflation and the declining value of the Pakistani rupee. But FATF will most likely will keep Pakistan into the grey list if it appears to this organization that Pakistan actions are half-hearted and are not likely to help in money laundering and to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. Okay. So that was all for FATF. If you like this video, please like and share it as much as possible. So I will be meeting you again in a new lecture. So till then, take care. Thank you.